Patience is something that I believe is one of the biggest issues that younger entrepreneurs don't have. You have to be patient. Shit takes a lot longer than you think it is.
Welcome to the Break Free podcast with your host, David Mancilla. Today is a very special day. I've been trying to do this podcast with Illan for a long time, but he didn't know until I finally got everything together and the stars got aligned to have you in my podcast. Illan, brother, it's a blessing to have you here. How are you?
I'm well, David. Thank you for having me.
Beautiful, beautiful. Illan, maybe can you tell us where do you live and what do you do for a living?
Okay. Well, I live in Toronto, originally from South Africa, but moved here quite young. And what do I do for a living? I mean, that's a hard question to answer, David. Maybe we'll dive into it a little bit deeper. But when people ask me that question, I tell them either I'm a storyteller or I'm a professional opportunist. But my day-to-day job of a CEO is at Firepower Capital, where we are an investment bank, a lender, and a private equity business. So we have really three pillars to our business.
Beautiful. It's one area that, talking about businesses and finance and making a living, what you do, I consider one of the most difficult business to be in. The risks are so high, and the level of financial intelligence and psychological intelligence that you need to have has to be very, very high in order to succeed. I've known many people in your business that they just don't make it, right? And it's because they don't have what you have. And that's why you're here, so you can shed the light onto the world with these amazing accomplishments that you have been able to achieve so far. So, right?
I mean, it's interesting because I find the idea of being a teacher or an artist a hell of a lot harder than what I do. With self-awareness, you know what you're good at and you know what you're not good at. And I'm a big believer that to be great at something, it has to come somewhat easy. And what I mean by that is you have to have kind of an innate ability in that given field. And I really don't find what I do that difficult. I love it. It's my true passion. There are a million different things that I would think is more difficult than what I do.
Beautiful. And that you mentioned true passion, which is so important. And one of the reasons why I made this podcast is because most people don't even know what their passion is. Mm-hmm. They get trapped in a job or in a business. They make a business that is not their passion because they're following the dollars, or the job gives them a sense of stability, but they're not living their life to the fullest because they know they're supposed to be doing something else, but they don't have either the intelligence or the motivation or the opportunity to do it. So again, thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Tell me something. How did you start your life? Let's go back when you were 16, 17, 18. Where were you and what was going in your mind back then?
Yeah, I mean, I was a real nerd. My former life was all science. I landed up getting into university, doing my degree in genetics. Really thought I was gonna be a doctor. And then I had my parents kind of turn to me and say, "Hey, we'd love it if you did an MBA prior to doing medical school," because I'd gotten into U of T medical school. And I said, "Sure." So I did my MBA and got recruited by a venture capital fund. And I mean, there's a longer story there, but trust me, the idea of being where I'm at today, back when I was 16, 17, was not at all in my headspace. I really had my life planned. I was going down the medical route, and I truly didn't think there was anything that was going to stop me. So, landing up in this position has been a fork, a very, very good fork in the road, but one in which I did not expect.
My God. So how was that process when you were already aligned to become a doctor? You were accepted to one of the best universities in the country and in the world for medical school. Like, can you tell me what was your process of thought after you considered what your parents were suggesting?
Yeah, so I'm the eldest of four kids. My father's he's a real estate developer, and I don't think he had a good sense of whether anyone else would go into business. So he just thought it'd be great if I could do my MBA because doctors historically had made horrible business people. And, he knew my DNA more than I did at the time. And he knew even if I went into medicine, I would land up doing something entrepreneurial in medicine. So he thought it'd be a good idea to have a business base because, if you're building your practice as a doctor, there's a big business component to it that many doctors mess up. So he thought that would be a good starting point. And, selfishly for him, he wanted at least someone to know something about business, God forbid something happened to him. So I landed up agreeing to do my MBA, and it became very clear to me during my internship that I was built for this. In hindsight's 2020. In hindsight, I'd run businesses during university. I had always had that entrepreneurial bug. I just didn't put my mind on. I didn't really identify it because when I grew up, and if you did exceptionally well in school, I was fortunate that schooling, math, science came fairly easy to me. I had very high marks, and you kind of get pushed into STEM if you innately do really well in school. Mm-hmm. So I kind of just thought that was my calling because that's all I knew. In retrospect, I really did not have a passion for STEM. For me, school was always a means to an end. So going through the MBA, identifying that I really didn't want to do medicine anymore, was a very interesting transition for me mentally, because going from literally 4 years old up until, kind of 20, 21, 22, that was the only path I had. So, kind of mourning the death of that path and moving into business was definitely a mental process I had to go through.
Incredible. And some people actually do it later on in their life. I know a doctor, she's a pediatrician. She practiced for over 30 years. And then her passion was changing into having more impact than just her patients. So she started teaching other medical students, other doctors. And then she realized that the need for having that proficiency was beyond the hospital she was working at. So you know what she did? She became a software entrepreneur. Wow. She bought a software company with an e-learning background, and now she manages this 100 people organization that impacts North America and Western Europe. And she doesn't do medicine anymore. And, it's incredible. So it's never too late, I guess.
No, it isn't. It isn't. But so, identifying a passion is very challenging, because I think to identify a passion, you first have to identify who the hell you are. And most people have zero self-awareness. I think it's the biggest issue that people have is that they don't look inwardly. They don't identify their obstacles and what makes them special, and get comfortable with not being great at everything, and understanding that it's okay to double down on your strengths and screw the weaknesses. People have a really hard time figuring out who the heck they are. So they don't know who they are. There's no way to identify what they're passionate about.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So when you started your MBA, what courses were most appealing to you?
You want my honest answer? Nothing.
Yeah. I can imagine, because you came from science, right?
Yeah. For me, what was interesting was the human dynamic in group projects, and understanding how to lead people, and understanding how to get from people, who weren't super talented, what you needed from them in those situations. I found it very difficult learning about business from theorists who had never been in business. That's a really tough thing for me to swallow. But understanding the human dynamic that exists within business was probably the most interesting, and it remains the most interesting. The business side of business to me is table stakes. The human side of business is what is fascinating to me.
Incredible. So then you graduated and you got an internship, or?
Yeah, as part of the program, I had to become an intern, and I was an intern at a venture capital fund. And the day before accepting medical school, they offered me a job, and I had 12 hours to decide the rest of my life. because U of T had given me a 1-year deference and I had to accept medical school. And literally, I didn't know. I was still kind of 50-50. Sat down with my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and my parents, and I said, "What do I do? Do I go into medical school or do I stay in business?" And they're like, "We can't answer that for you. You got to figure it out for yourself."
Wow.
So, so I landed up. I'd love to give you a noble reason, but the reality is one required no more school and one required a ton of school. So I landed up staying in business, which was an absolute blessing because that really is, now I'm 38. I've had, 15 years of experience and 12 years as a CEO. And there's nothing about me that should have been a doctor.
Right.
And sometimes it takes time to realize that. I mean, there is no, unfortunately for all of us, there's no hack to experience. You can't get experience without going through the years and emotions, and that's a tough pill to swallow for people that are really smart, that think that because they're smart they can bypass that process. It's not doable. Mm-hmm. And I hate admitting that because I want to believe that I can accomplish anything, and I know everything, but the reality is I know that 10 years from now I'll know that this version of me didn't know what that version of me now knows.
It's true, right? This is that wisdom can only be earned by experience and 100%. By failure, right? Yeah. Incredible. So how long did you last in your first job?
About 2.5 years. Became very clear to me. So I left at 26 to start Firepower. Became pretty clear to me that I was basically unemployable. And what I mean by that is I have a really tough time carrying out someone else's vision because I think I'm right.
Yes.
The only, and I'm not really great at taking orders. I tell everyone, I'm like, unless you sleep in the bed next to me, I'm not listening to you. I have one boss. She just happens to sleep next to me.
It's so beautiful to have taken that leap of faith because a lot of people are like you and they are trapped in a job because they have the golden handcuffs, the job security.
Yeah.
And that's where stress comes from. That's where, stress turns into negative emotions and eventually turns into disease, right? I remember the first job that I had, the director just had a heart attack and died, and he was 52 years old.
Yeah.
And now that, now with my 49 years, I realized everything is about not following your path. It's about forcing something because you have a certain sense of stability. And that creates the worst scenario for your being, for yourself, right?
I left a 6-figure job at 26 years old and made nothing for the first 3 years of being in business. But that all being said, I think that this idea of chasing your passion to some degree gets romanticized. And what I mean by that is I was in a position where I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. Mm-hmm. I could afford the risk. And it's not lost on me that there are situations in life that prevent people from having that opportunity. I mean, I still think that there's always a way, and that could be working on the side and weekends and evenings. Like there's always a way, but to just quit something and start something 100%, that's not always the most responsible move for people that aren't in a position where they don't have those, where they have real responsibilities. So, I like to always preface this idea because people always hear from people like us who have chased our dreams and be successful. There's a lot of horror stories that you don't hear about.
For sure. But, I think we all deserve to take that leap of faith and the chance though, right? Like so I started a first business, I failed at it. Thank God I was able to sell it. So I didn't go bankrupt, but I just broke even and did 2 years of hard work, very hard work, making nothing, making negative money, right? So then I went to the corporate world, and when I decided to try again, I already had 3 kids, wife, 3 kids, a mortgage to pay. But I had, I actually had the golden handcuffs. And, when I made the leap of faith on jumping into the decision, I was talking to my boss, my wife, the same as you. And, she told me, like, what's the worst that could happen? You open your business, you fail again, you just go get another job.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, she told me you got 5 years because now she was, she was supporting the family, right? She's like 5 years and that's it. If you don't make it in 5 years, you have to go back and get a job, right?
Yeah. No, look, I mean, you and I both know what it feels like to actually chase your dreams and achieve them, right? I mean, it is no more fulfilling feeling. But I also think it's very dangerous to think that everyone should be an entrepreneur.
Oh,
And they
yeah, for
shouldn't,
sure.
because chasing your dreams could very much be working your way up within a larger corporation or any corporation and becoming the best version of yourself, right?
Yeah.
So chasing your dreams and being fulfilled and being passionate does not mean that you have to be the number one. You know, I know some extremely successful people that will tell you straight to your face that they're the best number twos on planet Earth. So, you know, I think that people get confused sometimes by the message where it's like, hey, quit your job and start something on your own. That's not always what I think people are like us are saying. It's find what you're passionate about and do it.
Yeah, for sure. Like if you look at my organization, my business, everybody that is around me are happy to be where they are and they are fulfilling their life,
Exactly.
supporting the family, right? The ISU family. Especially, my number two, he will die for the company. And he had his own business before he came with me. And he was not happy, he was not fulfilled running his own business. But now together with me, my God, is he fulfilled, right? So you're completely right. And this is something to be very clear, because you're right, especially now in the startup world, when people see people getting rich fast by getting into a software business or something like that. It's not for everybody, right?
And it's it's one in a million. I mean, it's I always use the analogy of, like, for every LeBron James, there's 10,000 exceptionally good basketball players that didn't make it, right? So like you're that's why I always say, like, this idea gets romanticized, right? Like the idea of following your passion is an incredibly good one, but the passion doesn't have to be drop everything and start your own thing. If you're not a built entrepreneur, that's a really bad idea. So, the self-awareness component has to be layered in to, making those sorts of decisions, because the last thing you want is someone who just falls in love with the sexiness of the idea of being an entrepreneur, because that somehow becomes sexy. When I was like really young, like if your mother told their friend that, my son's an entrepreneur, you'd be like, oh, I'm really sorry to hear that. Like that meant that you were broke, right?
Yeah.
In today's age, it's become the new rock star, which,
Right.
I think is a dangerous, thing that's happening, where it's become too romantic.
Right. For sure. Now, I want to make an emphasis on your first 3 years, because when I decided to quit my job and go into business, I had nowhere to land. I had no clients, nothing. But I was fortunate enough to land a client, and in 3 months, I made the same money that I was making a whole year as an employee. But you had to work your ass off for 3 years.
Yeah, I was not
before you saw a penny.
Money.
How was that psychology? Like, how did you keep going? Because most people, if they don't make money in 6 months, they quit. And look at you now, right?
Yeah, I honestly believe, David, I'm slightly delusional. I really do. I have this delusional optimism where if anyone looked around in certain scenarios that I've had in my life, they wouldn't find a flicker of evidence that I was going to be successful. But I always believed I was going to be, even when I didn't have proof. I mean, that's what belief is, right? Belief is in the absence of proof, because if you have proof, you don't need to believe.
Exactly.
And I also had this mentality that failure wasn't an option. I really believe that people a lot of times fail because they have that as an option in their brain.
Yeah.
When I say that failure wasn't an option, it's a hard thing to articulate, because someone will say, well, you could always fail. No, in my head, I couldn't. I really mean that. I really felt and I still to this day feel as though failure is not an option. And I can't explain what that feels like in my brain, but it's a very extreme feeling.
And and you kind of need that mentality if you want to be in your own in business.
You got to be a little deluded. You
right?
do.
But I never seen anybody that made no money for 3 years. It's the first time. You're the first guest in this podcast after one whole year of interviewing people every week that tells me they didn't make a penny for 3 years. That's because that in itself.
Negative. Yeah, I was going negative for 3 years.
Right? Imagine think about the psychology going to work and making no money, right? It's crazy. And you have to have that delusional mentality saying that I will achieve this no matter what, or I'll die trying. And then success comes, because this is really what your brain is formulating is, I'm going to find the light at the end of the tunnel. But I don't know how long and how big the tunnel is, right?
Accomplishing anything great is hard. If it wasn't hard, everyone would do it. And I know that sounds cliche, but it's true. It's not easy believing in yourself over an extended period of time. It really isn't. But I was fortunate that I have incredible parents. I think that plays a huge role. I have an incredible partner who's been an incredible support for me. As much as I've believed in myself, she believed in me just as much. So I think it's one thing to say that you have that internal belief in yourself, but having a support system around you is crucial. Because I don't know if I would have felt all the things that I just articulated if I didn't have an incredible support system.
For sure. And you're right. One of the advices that I got from somebody very dear to me in the business world, when I decided to go on my own, he told me, David, I did what you're trying to do. And I went back and got a job because for 10 years, I was making half the money in my business that I'm making as an employee now. So he said, don't waste your time. Imagine if I would have listened to that advice, right? And I'm talking about this because the support system is important, but also at the same time, you have to find the right people to surround you. You were blessed that your parents were like that already, but you chose your wife very well, right? Because if she's doing that, she's part of your success, right?
I think choosing the right partner is one of the most crucial decisions you could ever make, if not the most crucial.
For sure. One question that is, I've been meaning to ask this question, and now I have the time to do it. What was your first sale, and how did it feel to make your first paycheck after being so hungry for so long?
Yeah, I don't. The first sale was we raised some money for a company, and I think we got paid like 30 grand. How did it feel? One of my biggest issues is I don't celebrate wins the way I should. So to be perfectly honest, and not because I'm transparent and you know me well enough, David, I'd love to tell you it felt amazing. It felt like nothing. It was part of the process. I didn't let it feel as good as it should have felt. I've done a better job now as I've kind of matured to understand that part of the process is to celebrate the wins, because I think it's really important. But I was so driven and in the mode of having to figure it out that I don't think I stopped for a second where I should have.
That is, that's part of the success is that though. My biggest problems when I was an entrepreneur is that I celebrated so much when I had my wings. But at the same time, when I lost something, I will go down and be so devastated that it will be so hard for me to get back up. So those vibrational swings were too high. So now,
and mine was opposite, where the losses didn't take me too down, but I never went too high.
And that's beautiful, because you were built like that. I had to learn it, and it's very hard. And by the way, I just conquered that about 5 years ago, and I keep learning how to do that, because my personality tends to be, oh my God, we made this thing, it's incredible. And then we finish a project or something goes wrong or I lose $1,000,000 and I'm like, oh my God, this is the end of the world. How can I survive now?
Yeah.
So now I'm like this, try to have my silos shorter. So I still celebrate, still be concerned, but not let just myself go down or go up too much, right?
Yeah, no, I totally understand what you're saying. Staying even keel is important. I think that emotional decisions are typically bad decisions, and I've had to learn that as well because I'm a pretty I've historically been a very high, low, like in terms of personality. I'm very ADHD, and I've had to mellow my personality to not make excitable decisions, because I really do think that reflection and time are on your side as it relates to strategic, big decisions in your business.
Amazing.
Patience is something that I believe is one of the biggest issues that younger entrepreneurs don't have. You have to be patient. Shit takes a lot longer than you think it is. I mean, I've never seen a forecast hit in my life. I'm in the business of financing businesses. I've never seen a forecast hit in my life.
How do you learn this? Well, I guess your MBA didn't help you with this because it's all about planning and forecasting and right?
Yeah, it's experience. It's experience. Like I said, it's I've seen thousands and thousands of deals now, and there's no substitution for experience.
Right, and that patience is incredible. Like talking about my business partner, the guy that I told you that had his own business first, he is like you. He has this beautiful, calm, patient personality that pulls me back because I want things done yesterday, and I want to get the money that I'm supposed to get now. And he says, like, this takes time. Come on, take it easy. There is more time than life. What are you rushing for? And I'm finally beginning with COVID, by the way. COVID actually helped me to finally settle down into that motion where it's okay. It's going to be not on my time. It's going to be on whatever is supposed to happen. And wherever the cards land, that's the path that I'm supposed to take.
COVID's helped me with that as well, for sure.
Right? Because it's not, I was in my house for 1 year, right? So it's crazy how there is always silver linings with problems, right?
100%.
Tell me, how long did it take you to be profitable enough to start hiring people?
I had hired people even when I was losing money. I was paying them and not myself. So pretty much from day one, I had 1 or 2 employees, and grew it slowly. But I'm a big believer in that building a business, you pay yourself last. Last year, I was probably, the 9th highest paid person in the company. I've never been the highest paid person in the business. I'm the largest equity holder. I think that, that's what I've always been in it for. And I'm a big believer that to build, you want to bring the right talent around you. And that's where my investment in dollars go to.
Makes sense. And paying yourself last for sure. And that's another thing that the people that want to be entrepreneurs don't get. They think they're going to be free, to have all the time in the world, and they think they're going to be rich. And those two things may come, but it's going to take some time.
Real leaders eat last. I'm a big believer in that.
For sure. Yeah, I'm exactly the same way. I'm also one of the lowest paid employees in the company. But like you said, I have the majority of the equity, and that makes up for it, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's the price to pay for the privilege of doing your own thing and inspiring the right people so that you can add massive value to the marketplace, right?
Yeah.
What has been one of your biggest problems in your business life, and how did you overcome it?
The biggest problem as I've scaled the business has been myself. And what I mean by that is the transition that I've had to go through over the last 5 years as it relates to the amount of control that I had on the business, it was holding the business back. 5 years ago, I ran payroll. I organized who picked up the garbages in the office, who picked up the shredding. And, most entrepreneurs are control freaks. And, without exception, I find that. And, transitioning and letting go of that control and dealing with the anxiety of letting go of that control has been a real process for me. Coming out the other end now, where I have an incredible team, and I couldn't even tell you what's in the bank right now, and I couldn't tell you how to even access it. I'm such a calmer person, but at the time, it didn't feel like I was calmer. It felt like a lot of anxiety. So, I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs hold their businesses back by not empowering the people around them and having too much go through them. So that was one of the biggest challenges I dealt with, was getting myself out of the way.
Incredible. It's so important. I suffer from exactly the same thing. That's why we're so alike and we like each other so much. And now I'm realizing how similar we are. So I went up to the corporate ladder to very senior positions in Fortune 500 companies. Then so I did learn how to delegate. But then when I started my own business, I was so afraid of not making money that I did everything myself. And then I got used to it. Even the code in the architecture, I run a software company. So I was actually writing code until my mentor, 4 or 5 years into the business, my mentor told me, if you don't uninstall your compiler and let your people do their job, I will never give you a piece of advice anymore. Yeah. But for me, it was so hard. So I said, okay, I won't write code, but I will still be involved in the architecture. And then finally, I gave that up. But the finances, the money, always me. Until there is a book actually that just came out. It's called Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. Highly recommended. This book talks specifically how to do this, about how to do it in a smart way, so you find the right who's, so that you don't have to know the hows, right? Yeah. And now I am 95% delegated. That's why I have the time to do this podcast. So now I can impact the world in a different way because I have better people than me to do the stuff that I used to do.
Yeah, no, it's finding the right people around you. I mean, I spoke about getting myself out of the way is one of the biggest challenges. The other biggest challenge is finding great, loyal people. And, I've been extremely fortunate in that I have an incredible team around me. Anyone who says they're the best team, I'll challenge them. But I guess that's what most entrepreneurs would say, but I really would. I think I have the greatest team ever. But that you got to kiss a lot of frogs on the way to get there.
Yeah, it's the motto, right? Like hire slow and fire fast.
The firing fast has always been a challenge for me. So I think most people get that wrong. If you have compassion, and I think to be a good leader, you have to have compassion and empathy. It's really tough. I build personal relationships with kind of everyone, and firing fast has been one of the biggest mistakes that I've made, not firing fast enough.
Yeah. It happened to me a lot, and I was the same, right? My heart is so big, and I try to work with the person and try to give them personal development. The problem with that is that if you want to grow fast, this person could take most of the company's energy, and maybe it's just not a good fit. So what I've invested the most in the last 10 years is on the hiring process. So we try to eliminate all the people that is not aligned with our values and people that don't have the right technical expertise that we need, so that when we hire somebody, I have a 90% chance that it's going to work out. And even like that, within 2 months, we have to let go of some people, right? Mm. But I have it done in a process so that I know now that the people that is in front of me has been vetted very well. So it takes 4 to 5 months for somebody to work for me, which is also a problem, because if I want to scale fast, that's preventing me from actually growing fast enough. But I'd rather have a smaller team and be completely fulfilled and adding massive value than grow really fast and then face the consequences, or have unhappy clients, or a bad apple makes the other apples bad around them, right?
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So what's in your future? 38, you're already accomplished. You're financially independent. What's next for you in life?
Continue doing what I love. For me, it's the reason I get up every day is because I love doing this. This really makes me fulfilled. I love helping business owners sell their businesses and monetize all their hard work over a 50-year period. I like helping companies, get capital to, expand and build upon their vision. I really love it. I get to deal with entrepreneurs all day long. I still think that we've scratched the surface and there's a lot of room to grow. But yeah, just keep doing what we're doing. And creating a culture within our company that allows everyone that works at Firepower to feel fulfilled and accomplish what their goals are. I think that's really important to me. It's funny. When I buy the car, it's cool for the first few days. When I see my employee buy his or her, dream car, that sticks with me. Like I love that. And that's an ego thing for sure. But I really get a kick out of creating a platform that allows others to achieve their goals. It's extremely exciting.
It's funny because it's 100% an ego thing, but what you're talking about is so true. Uh, we think that we're gonna be happier when we receive, but it's the opposite. When you give is when you get the happiest.
For sure.
I was doing a meditation with my team. I'm getting into this habit of meditating with my people. So yesterday we were making this meditation, and meditation started relaxing ourselves, and then after, in the middle of the meditation, we imagined that this beautiful energy came from our heart, and it was blessing somebody that you love the most. And then when we finished the meditation, I asked people, what part of the meditation do you like the most? And everybody said when we were blessing somebody else with our energy. Mm-hmm. So the giving part was a lot more fulfilling than the receiving part.
Yeah, it's absolutely true.
Crazy, eh?
Yeah.
If you had a time machine and you could go for dinner with your 28-year-old self, what advice would you give this person?
Because I really do think that you land up in a spot from learning things the hard way. So I don't know if I'd want to prevent myself from learning things the hard way, even if I could.
Wow, that's deep.
Yeah, I think I would just tell myself that it would be okay and that it feels hard now, but just keep on the path and trust yourself. But yeah, I wouldn't want to influence the learnings that come with hard shit. I think you learn a lot more through going through it than for someone to build a bridge to go over it. I think you want to go through it. I really do.
Wow. I think the biggest problem that we have as human race is the limiting belief that we are not supposed to have problems.
Yeah.
That's the biggest problem.
Life's hard. And it should be.
It should be, because we came to learn and to overcome and to grow, and we came to know how to create more, how to give more, right?
And we live in the easiest time ever. We have air conditioning, we have nice homes, we have transportation, we have cell phones. Like, we live easy. I mean, if you look historically at the human race, we fucking have to deal with nothing. Like,
I know.
Like even the hard stuff we deal with isn't that hard when you put it in perspective.
And I wouldn't have to go back in time too far, like 50, 60 years ago was horrible.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And what worries me the most, and one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast, is that I believe, even though we have it so easy, a lot of people are suffering from anxiety and depression.
100%.
Their mental health is, through the roof.
100%.
Like, if you look at my grandparents, or even my dad was 82 when he passed away, so he was born like in the 30s. They never, ever had any problems with thinking how they looked or trying to impress other people, because they were busy enough trying to make a living for themselves. They were busy enough trying to make sure they survive and their family survive the next week. My grandma still went to the market every day because she only had enough money for that day, right?
Yeah.
We're talking somebody that was born in 1907, right? My grandma. That was it. We didn't have enough time to think about meaningless stuff.
You're absolutely right. I mean, it's funny. You look at third world countries, and they have less mental health issues because they have to deal with real hard stuff. And I'm not downplaying mental health issues. I've suffered from depression and anxiety in my life. So
Yeah,
the
me
last
too.
thing I would do. It's a
Yeah.
very real thing.
Yeah.
And it's I think we have too much input. Like, I think social media is horrible for us.
Mhm.
It's that we're subconsciously bombarded by comparisons to make us feel worse about ourselves on a every second basis. I don't think it's healthy. I really don't. I think that we need to simplify our lives to some degree. And I would implore everyone who is in a bad state, let's get off social media. Just get rid of it.
Yeah. Actually, I watched the Social Media Dilemma. Have you watched
Yeah,
that?
I've seen it. Yeah.
When I saw that documentary, I'm like, what am I doing? And I am a software scientist. I know how to make algorithms. The
Yeah.
way social media plays with the chemicals that are created in your brain is so crazy that they are actually enslaving you without you even knowing. They are enslaving you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think everything can be used for the right reason and the wrong reason. What I did myself is I don't hang out on social media too much, but even when I do, I subscribe to only positive messaging. Another thing that I stopped doing is I stopped watching the news because it's just negative, because what bleeds leads. So the only thing they're going to show you is something that is going to attract you because they want to make money with your attention. And who wants to be in front of something negative when you cannot do anything about it anyway, right?
Yeah. I
It's
agree.
it's crazy. Uh, do you have a specific book or material that you have read that has made the most impact in your life?
Um, I think from a business standpoint, uh, I really like a recent book I'll give you is "Am I Being Too Subtle" by Sam Zell. I'm a huge believer in living your authentic self. I think that it's it's way more fun when you're living authentically, and it's way more fulfilling when you live authentically. So I'm really big on reading about authenticity and how it can play a meaningful role in not only making you a better business person but a better human being. I wouldn't say there's one book that changed my life. I've learned a lot from many different things.
Mhm.
I'd say, I've the things that changed my life have been the relationships that I hold near and dear to me, and the advice I get from my parents and my wife more than a book.
Beautiful. It's profound. And one last question. I know you're a very busy person, and I went over overtaking too much of your time. If you had access to a billboard in the busiest highway on earth, what would you write on that billboard and why?
I would write "Be yourself." I think that the most happiness that I've come. Look, I'm not a super religious person or spiritual person, but I do believe that the point of life is to maximize your happiness and the happiness of those around you. And I haven't found anything that's led to more happiness for me personally than becoming comfortable with who I am and understanding that I don't need to hide and that I can be vulnerable and that I can be powerful and that I can be weak and that I can be every component of myself, and people will still respect me, and they still won't look upon me as if I'm weak or any of those things. Like all these insecurities that one has, you realize that the closer and closer you get to being yourself, the more people actually want to be around you, and the more your energy resonates with individuals that you come across. And the byproduct of it is it feels really good to be living, your true self. and not have to put on a mask every day. So, I would wish nothing more than for people to find the happiness in their lives that I have felt over the last, my transition, and hopefully will continue to feel. And that's definitely that's come from being myself.
That's very, very deep and profound. Thank you very much, brother. And I can see the pattern between that and social media, because nowadays people are comparing themselves with fake images, right?
Yeah.
And you're always trying to be somebody that you are not, or trying to pretend. And now, because it's all digital, it's so easy to have a photo shoot and say, hey, I'm in Paris, just because you don't feel good enough. And then people watch this and they feel like they need to achieve whatever the other person is achieving without realizing that they need to be themselves, right?
100%.
Impressive.
100%.
Brother, thank you so much. If people want to find you, how can they get in contact with you, find out more about your services?
Yeah, look, they can go to firepowercapital.com. I'm easily reached on LinkedIn. I'm a big believer that if someone wants to find someone, they'll find a way.
Beautiful. Ilan, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, brother. Have a beautiful rest of the week, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it.
That's all for today's episode of the Break Free Podcast. Head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the show. Starting your own business can be tough, but it doesn't have to be. Visit davidmansilla.com to pick up a copy of the #1 international best-selling book, Breaking Out of Corporate Jail. Expand what you consider to be possible and reach your full potential. And join us on the next episode.